What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning to another episode of Right on Cue Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Logan Chestnut, with Small Batch Barbecue. And man, it's me. It's just me. You just had me tonight. Currently, I have a surprise guest host that may be popping in here a little bit later, but for right now, it's just me. So, man, it is a hot one out there. Holy crap. So if you notice that my cheeks are abnormally rosy, that would be the case. I am ready for the fall. I'm ready for football. I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm like, so this is how bad I'm getting. So I've been missing sports so bad that I've been watching the Olympics. So I mean, the Olympics is like a nice little buffer between the two. But I've been enjoying watching swimming for some reason. I love the swimming, but we were at my uncle's house this weekend, and it was obviously we had all the Olympics on, and it was kind of like a family reunion we hadn't had in a while. And it was the weirdest sports, dressage, like with the horses, like just prancing around, and I'm like, how in the hell is some of these things a sport? I'm like, this has got to be the whitest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, there's not a lot of like. I mean, if you notice, like all the countries competing, it was very Baltic, very very English, prim proper. Like at one point, they either had a duke or a lord or a king or a queen in order to be part of that sport. So I don't know exactly how fair that is to the Olympics. Oh, what's another one that's fun? Oh, the other one, which my favorite part about the Olympics, hands down, besides ping pong, but Snoop Dogg is pretty much being our, like, he's our mascot, and I am down with it. I think he talked to France or whoever when he was carrying the torch. Did that torch resemble anything else to any of you guys, or was it just me? It was very how do we say, it's a jointish. So I wanted to let Snoop Dogg keep it. I can only say, man, he's like, I can light big stuff out of this. Just he's like, I got the torch. But man, he is awesome. There's few people in this world can do anything they want to make it cool, and he is definitely it. So I am proud that he is who we chose to represent us at the Olympics. Definitely not a terrible thing. But hey, let's get back to barbecue, because I think that's what this show's about. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I get confused, especially when the boys leave me by myself. I never know what I'm going to get into whenever I'm here by myself. But anywho, man, our guest tonight is none other than Mr. Kurt Mueller of IRONHEAD Barbecue. He is former host. We'll get into that. I don't know which one it is, but of the Barbecue Life. He actually we're coming full spectrum here, man. So that was actually the first barbecue podcast I was ever a guest on. So now we come full spectrum, and I said it's only fair that I bring him onto my show. So so instead of me sitting here talking to myself like a loony person, let's bring him on, man. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Kurt Mueller of IRONHEAD Barbecue. What's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, man? How are you?
Good, man. I'm over here. When the boys leave me by myself, I don't know what to do with my hands. It's like I don't know what to do. I don't know. I need like that's why I love like banter. I love back and forth banter because it makes it flow easier. But when they leave me by myself, I'll do what I want.
You do what you want. Well, I can't blame you for that, man.
For sure, man. So how you been doing, man? Everything going good?
Good, man. Just staying busy. As we were chatting before the show, you've kind of seen the journey on Facebook, on Instagram, and it's take it one day at a time, but it's a lot of fun, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. It's been a journey for sure, man. It's where'd you start off? You started off in the financial sector, wasn't it?
Yeah, so 12, almost 13 years as a financial planner. Started competing back in 21 and really loved it. My dad taught me how to barbecue years ago, probably 30-something years ago when I was 9 or 10, and get into competition. That really just fueled that fire. And then lo and behold, I liked it so much. I said, you know what? I don't want to do financial planning anymore, and I want to do this full time. So, and then created a podcast. You were on it. And now I'm here. So there you go. The rest is history.
Boom. Look at, man. I am the protege of you, man. It's you got me going. I also big fan of your show, and I listen every week. You know, I love finding so are you a podcast guy? Are you a big podcaster, or like listen to podcasts and kind of just while you're driving, or kind of
I'm more of an audiobook guy, to be honest.
Audiobook
It's
guy?
funny. I created a podcast, and I don't really listen to podcasts. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I guess it is what it is, right? But no, I do the audiobook thing.
I just started to get into that, and I got into one book, and I downed both of them in a weekend, and that was it was cool, man. I'm getting into, because I can't get myself to read because I don't have enough time, but like when I'm driving and listen to audiobooks, stuff like that, it's pretty I'm getting down with it, man. I feel like I'm educating myself.
Efficient. It's very efficient, for sure.
I mean, it's a lot more educational than watching South Park episodes over and over again, what I used to do.
It is. I mean, hey, we've all been there, man. We've all done the Netflix stuff, so no shame in that.
Oh, I know. Or like just TikTok or YouTube videos, it's like stream, and it's like 2 hours later. What the hell am I watching this for?
It's a huge time suck, man. You're exactly right. You got to be careful about it, for sure. Yeah.
Well, man, here, let me bring on the guest host I was talking about. It's hard to get good help nowadays, Kurt. I mean, it's hard.
I tell you.
Anyways, Mr. Matt Osmond from Blinky's Barbecue. Wow.
What's going on, everybody?
What's up? What's up, buddy? What's up? Oh, hello. So, Matt, thank you for joining us. Time is just a reference frame of mind. It's no big deal. I like the backdrop, very Augusta-ish.
We're trying something new over here. So
it looks good. It looks good for sure, man. For sure.
There you go.
But no, man. Back to our guest, Mr. Kurt. Like I said, now I think, but me and Matt have both interviewed you now. So yeah, it's exclusive.
Technically, yeah.
Exclusive.
Actually, you're right. We're 2 for 2.
We had to tag team you, man. No, man. So we started off, like you said, you did financial planning for years, and then you kind of rolled into you like competition barbecue, and I guess through the competition barbecue, I guess you kind of be like me. You love the passion, you love the people, and you love the atmosphere, and so you're like, whatever competition thinks in their head, in the back of the mind, you just had the cojones to make that leap. So tell me about making that leap, because this month we really wanted to highlight the plight and the adventure of the food truck or food vendors, barbecue food vendors. And so making that jump from financial security kind of with a 9-to-5 job to an 80-hour a week job, starting your own business, like how's that gone? And like tell us a little about that.
Yeah, well, it all starts with one word, and that is passion. If you don't have the passion for it, I wouldn't do it. And that goes for anything, right? So you got to have a tremendous amount of passion building anything, especially a small business these days. And again, if you don't, at the first sign of rejection or at the first sign of disappointment, a lot of people are just going to crumble and fold. So for me, it was helpful to have that financial planning background, because it was self-employed for almost 13 years. So that part was, an easier transition than most if you're coming off a 9-to-5 W-2 type of a setup. But for me, it just boiled down to the fact that I didn't want to look back 40 years from now and say, hey, I wish I'd have pursued my barbecue dreams. I wish I'd have done this. I didn't want to be in that position. And so, there's never a good time to change careers like that, right? I mean, you talk about a complete 180 in terms of career trajectories. They're completely different from each other. Never a good time to do it. Just like there's never a good time to start a podcast. There's never a good time to start, competing. I mean, you just gotta, for me anyway, you got to just throw yourself in there, burn the ships, as they say, and just power forward. I mean, I don't know how else, and that works for me, right? I know some folks need to be a little bit more analytical, but for me, my mindset going back to that was really more about, hey, I don't want to have any regrets. I'm passionate about this. And frankly, I took a look at the local market as it pertains to the barbecue food trucks, the barbecue restaurants. And, I'll be the first to tell you that in this area, unfortunately, it leaves a lot to be desired. So I looked at what are they offering? What are they doing well? What are they not doing well? So I think it's important, and we can get into that too. But one of those things you got to do when you start this type of a business is make sure you understand your local market.
Sure. So, being more of an analytical kind of guy on the front end, with your previous job, I mean, you definitely have to look at things at all angles. I would guess for financial planning. Did you kind of take that approach when it came to making a leap, or you're like, oh, there's a cliff, let me see what's on the bottom of it, and just take the jump and just kind of work out the kinks as it goes?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, yes, I'm more of a take a leap kind of guy, just jump off the cliff. But also, yeah, you do need to do your due diligence, understand the numbers, understand what it takes to be profitable, right? Because if you don't, you can be intensely passionate about barbecue, you can be intensely passionate about anything. But if you don't understand what it takes to be profitable, the chances of you surviving long term are very low, and that's just statistically speaking, right? So, yes, I mean, I think it's a give and take, and you have to understand that it's a little bit of mix of both, because you can get yourself into a situation where you really understand the numbers, but you don't really have any passion, you don't really have any oomph, any zeal behind it, and you're going to kind of fall flat. Or you can be on the other side of that, where you've got a ton of passion, but you have no earthly idea how to price menu options. You have no earthly idea, about how to serve and customer service, and you can also fall flat. So you need to make sure you brush up on those skills if you don't already have them. You read some books, watch YouTube videos, whatever it may be, but understand both sides of that.
Well, and also because I follow you and I see the stories and I consume the content, because you're a fellow entrepreneur, a fellow food trucker out there slinging it, but you also have a little bit of a different approach with your menu selection. As talking to you from before, but you keep a home base, a smaller menu, in my opinion, I would say, but yet you have quality, and you have chosen quality ingredients, quality products to continue to push out and add to your menu versus, the schlep, the commodity, stuff like that.
You're dead on the money. I looked at it when I created the menu. I looked at it, and this is really the kind of the lens I put everything through. Is I looked at it as, what kind of menu do I want to see as a consumer? If I go to a restaurant and it's pages and pages and pages of a menu, and there's dozens and dozens of options, honestly, me personally, I just freaking shut down. Right? I'm just like, I don't know what to get. There's too many choices. And I think for a lot of people, especially in this day and age, if you give them a lot of choices, they're going to take longer to order. And when you're talking about, just pop-ups here and there, you're at a neighborhood, you're at a Walmart parking lot, whatever. Okay, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you're talking about a festival where you're doing, 50 transactions in an hour. You don't have time to somebody sit there and look at all these different options. So that's one thing. The other thing for me was just keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Like, do the basics really, really well. I think a lot of restaurants, a lot of these food trucks, they want to get really super creative with their menu. And there's a lot of folks out there that are much better culinary experts than I ever will be and ever want to be, right? So they have all these different flavors, and they've got a Hispanic flair and a South Texas flair and a West Coast flair. And it's fantastic food, right? But nobody knows what the hell it is, right? Nobody knows, well, it sounds great, I don't know what exactly it is. So I think keeping it simple is...
That tracks.
What's that?
He said that tracks. He said, no, I mean, definitely, I can agree with you. Like, I hate going to those restaurants and you see the menu is like 14 pages of items. You're like, man, like, and it's like, we do Greek, we do American, we do Chinese. I'm like, man, if you do this many things, you do a lot of things decent, nothing good. And like, I'd rather have
what is it that
like a pamphlet. It says like things like, this is what we do, but we kick ass at all 8 of them. And so like that, I personally, like, I prefer, especially in like here in Nashville, and the culinary market here, all the new restaurants are kind of like that now. They're like, hey, we have a limited menu. This is it. It's like, turn it over on the back, and that's our bar menu. So it's like there's no pages. It's just like simple, and it takes the guesswork out of for the customer. And like you said, that turns into quicker flips and more meals served.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, I mean, in my opinion, if you can have the best food on the planet, but if you're slow to get out those tickets. Anyway, if you're not personable, if you don't know how to communicate and listen to folks, and you're only concerned about the intricacies and the creativeness of your menu, I don't think you're going to last very long. You need to be able to turn out those tickets, Now, I'm not saying sacrifice quality. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is simplify the process. That's really, really important. And also understand that, it's the age old niche, right? Make sure, or a niche, however you want to pronounce it. I don't know how it's pronounced, but have a niche, have a niche, right? So focus on a few things and do those really, really well. For me, what I looked at is I said, okay, what is one of the meats that most folks don't want to take the time to barbecue or smoke? Brisket. They don't want to do it. It's expensive. It takes forever. Their buddy's cousin said it's terrible anyway. And, they tried one 17 years ago and it was terrible shoe leather. So they don't want to do it. So there's some value there, right? There's value to that. And people are going to pay for that value because they just don't want to take the time to do that. Same with butts. You could kind of say the same thing about all the different cuts of meat.
For sure. And did you kind of do like pricing, because you talk about profitability and stuff like that? Certain proteins are more of a break even point. I think brisket's one of those. It's a higher price meat, a lot of loss on it, but I mean it kind of brings people in the door, and then you make all your margins on the pork or chicken or something like that, or the sides. Did you kind of like do a little market research, as like price per plate, price per item when you came into it, or is that something you kind of learned on the fly?
So I use that market research, as you pointed out. I use that as a baseline, as a starting point, just to kind of get an idea of what the market was bearing, right? So I looked at, okay, well, what is, ABC Barbecue, what are they selling a pork plate with two sides and a roll for? Just to kind of give me a baseline, figure out where I was. But here's the other thing. This is a conscious decision that I made. This is really, really important. From the onset of it, my goal was never to be the cheapest barbecue in town.
Right.
That is not my goal. Never has been. We want to provide the best barbecue, and are we the cheapest? Absolutely not. I mean, but that's not our goal,
your market.
Right? So, right. So I think it's important to look at the local market to give you a baseline, but I also think it's important to understand that, to me, if your value proposition as a barbecue, really, actually, I would say I'd make the argument that any food vendor, no matter what you're selling, if you're a food vendor and your value proposition is price, then that's only going to get you so far.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, there's going to be somebody that comes along that's going to do it for cheaper than you.
Sure.
And that's just something, again, we could name, a dozen different restaurants, right, that are national chains that, and that's their focus. Their focus is price. And I get that. It's just, I think you need to decide when starting out, hey, do I want my focus to be on quality, or is it going to be on price? Because I don't know. I'm not going to say you can't do both. I'm going to say that it's very, very difficult to maintain a profitable business, to your point, especially with the price of brisket or dino ribs even. I mean, dino ribs are, almost twice the cost of brisket. You talk about a lot of waste. I mean, you've got those three bones so all that to say that, you got to have it as a baseline. You got to look at your local market as a baseline. But you know what? People are going to pay for a quality product. It's proven time and time again, whether it's an actual product, whether it's food. You look at all these different, retail outlets, et cetera, that focus on higher end quality goods, and people pay for them.
Right. What's the saying? It's like you can have three, you can have either have things fast, you can have them good, or you can have them cheap. You can only pick two.
Yep.
So if it's fast and cheap, or it can't be good, So I mean, that's a good, like, way to look at business when it comes to it. And like, you don't want those, like, you can't compete with, Big Bob's, Bubba's, pork sandwich for $5 and a bag of chips. So you don't want to compete with that. That's not your market. You want to go more high end. Like, yeah, if I want something fast and cheap, I'll go to McDonald's. But if I want something really good, I go to like a Jonathan's or something like that, So I mean, you're picking your market and you're staying that lane, and don't, know what you're worth, and get compensated for that. So I mean, I'm totally on board with your, kind of business plan and stuff like that. And barbecue takes a long time. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of effort, and it's not like a quick flip like some of these burger or sandwich shops.
Bingo! You hit it right on the head there. I mean, a lot of these trucks that you are competing with, so to speak, are more of a short order kitchen type of a setup, right? You place the order, they cook the food, whereas you can't. You and I both know you can't just throw on a brisket, right? You can't just throw on some beef ribs. Like That's you're planning that the day before, right? So
Sure.
It is a little bit different and it's unique in that respect. But I would also go back to, you talked about, looking at the market, looking at pricing. Take a look at, what are other places serving? Look at what are the other barbecue trucks serving? What are the barbecue restaurants serving in your area? What is the popular thing like in Nashville? I don't know. Like down here, like when people say I want a barbecue sandwich, that means they want a pulled pork sandwich, right? If I said that, if I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, if I said that in St. Louis, Missouri, they'd look at you and be like, well, I don't, is that a bratwurst? Is that a pork steak? Like they wouldn't know. So, there's definitely those little nuances, like geographically where you are. But don't let that limit you. Like tri-tip, for example, is something we have them on the menu 3 or 4 days a week. And that's definitely not a Southeast thing.
Hey, dude, that needs to be, because for me, like I'll take a good tri-tip over a brisket any day of the week. I love Santa Maria, like tri-tip style with like a chimichurri on top, like West Coast flair. Like I love me some tri-tip, and it's so versatile. And a lot of people in this area, like you got a local grocery store, like, hey, do you have any tri-tip? They look at you like, are you speaking English? Like, what is this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they just don't know, and you're right. And I love the Santa Maria style, hot and fast, open flame type of a setup. I also love, I've recently gotten on this kick cooking tri-tips like a brisket.
I haven't done that.
And I tell you, it's obviously a much different type of a cook. It's a lot more tender. You don't have, it's a longer cook, of course, but it's a lot, it's really different. And I think that's important too. We go back to, we talked about having a niche, like focusing on a specific market segment. I think that can help build your brand as well as how you cook certain things.
Yeah. How's the slow like smoked tri-tip? How does that differ? Like, is it dry? I see when I tried it the one time, and by say try, I mean I overcooked my tri-tip, and
there you go.
It got there like mine was super dry. Like, what's the trick? Is it low and slow, and that's the way to slowly raise the temperature? Because when I did it and I took it to 200, it was jerky for me.
Yeah.
Like I usually like cooking it like a steak.
So for what I have found, and it's kind of like the old saying goes, right? You got to make a lot of bad meat to really learn how to cook it right.
Amen.
So yeah, I made a lot of jerky right in the beginning. Right. It was a lot of really expensive jerky, yeah. But no, really, what I have found that works is smoke it at about. I run it at 235 for about 3 hours.
Okay.
I use my main workhorse is a gravity feed. I use a deep south gravity feed. That's my main workhorse. But smoke that for, like I said, about 3 hours, 235. And then I wrap it. Usually I cook 5 at a time, sometimes 10 at a time. So I'll just put all those, or I'll split them up, but I'll put it in a full aluminum pan, wrap it tight with aluminum foil, maybe throw a half stick of butter, a half carton of beef broth in the aluminum pan, throw it back in there for about an hour. And it's usually good to go. I like to pull it when it's like, 190-ish, because it's still going to cook while it's in the Cambro sitting. I don't want it to get it too far over 200, because then it just becomes pulled tri-tip at that point, which is not bad. I mean, it's great.
No, yeah. I made some good sandwiches, some Sammys.
Oh, yeah, it makes great sandwiches.
I want to put some W sauce, man. Do you like W sauce?
Is that the McDonald's with the McDonald's sauce with the W on it?
No, that's the new Worcestershire sauce. They call it the W sauce. I forgot who makes it, but man, that stuff. My buddy AJ introduced me to it. I feel like I have been living under a rock. That stuff is amazing as like a base on beef, but it is very, very good. It has very, very good flavor. But anyways,
let's check it out.
For sure, man. Let's move on to another question. Like I said, so when I first met you, like I said, it was down in Sip and Swan down here in Georgia, and came over and said, "Hey, howdy to you," because I've seen you on the podcast. I want to say hi. And so you started competing. So you jumped straight into the pro side, and you kind of had, for as limited time as you've been in the game, I mean, you got some, big, kind of, because you got on Barbecue USA. That was let's talk about that. And then you went from like just starting to compete at the Barbecue USA to podcast, stuff like that. So let's kind of talk about your competition side of your gig. So how long have you like competed in barbecue up until this point?
So started actually September of 2021. Our first competition. I say our because used to be two other guys on the team with me, and we used to be completely separate, different name, Atomic City Smokers. But
right.
At any rate, started in September 2021, GBA up in Cartersville, Georgia, and we got humbled real quick, right? We finished like middle of the pack. I think we finished like 12. I mean, there was like 20 teams, and I think we finished 12th overall or 13th overall. It wasn't anything to write home about. But yeah, like you said, going back to Barbecue USA, March rolls around 2022. So about 6 months later, you get an email blast from the folks down in Tifton that organized that competition in March. Now I'm drawing a blank on the name. But Rhythm and Blues, I think is what it's called.
Yes.
Anyway, so get a mass email that says, hey, Food Network wants to film our event. Are you interested to interview to be a featured team? And I'm sure everybody got the email. And of course, I'm not shy of the camera, that. And I said, absolutely. Because from the very beginning, I wanted to build a brand. And so we were fortunate to get through. I mean, it was a gauntlet of interviews. I mean, it seemed like 17 of the same interviews to get on. Fortunate enough to get on. Great experience. And, lo and behold, we got a rib call in that one. We finished third in ribs down there in Tifton, which was a ton of fun. Really helped our social media presence. And, just being exposed to those other great teams that were there, the Robbie Royals of the world, Chuck East, those kind of folks.
Yeah.
And from there, it just kind of really launched us into the digital world, so to speak. We got a lot of followers as a result of that and really started gaining some traction locally. And then fast forward, till about May, June timeframe of 22. And, at that point, the two other guys that were on the team with me decided to, pursue other things. And then it was just me and my brother at that point. And we were doing, in 22, we did 19 competitions. And we really made the transition that year over to KCBS. For me, I wanted to cook brisket, love the GBA, love MBN. To me, if you say you're a great pit master and you can't cook or you don't cook beef, I don't. You got to be able to cook beef, right? That's just my opinion, right? So that's why we made that transition over the KCBS side to do the brisket, chicken, the pork and the ribs, and right out the gate. Humbled right out the gate. I think we got dead ass last down there in Savannah. And they don't have it anymore, but it was Swine at the Shrine. And I think we got like second to last in Waynesboro that year, but tons of fun. Met a lot of great people. That's what folks say about the competition trail, right? Is you meet a lot of great folks. It is kind of one big family for the most part. And at some point I just decided, I was like, look, we were getting asked to do birthday parties. We were getting asked to do graduation parties and all these different events. And hey, can you cook for us here? And I finally said to myself, okay, well, maybe we're onto something here. Maybe this has legs. Maybe this can run. And fast forward to 2023, and that's when I left financial planning in September. And now I've been doing it full time ever since.
Right. It's funny. I love your Barbecue USA episode because it was one of the more memorable moments whenever Michael Simon had to come over there and wake you guys up.
Dude, that was wild. And I had a lot of people asking me,
Iron Chef waking you up.
Well, a lot of people thought it was staged, like it was for the show. I'm like, no, like that was legit. Like, who knows why, it didn't, my alarm didn't go off on anyway, whatever happened, it didn't happen. And that's a hell of a way to wake up at a competition with the big, it's like a 12 by 12 LED light that's on top of that camera. And it's 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's still dark, and you got this massive spotlight right in your face. You're trying to get out of the tent. They're rolling the film. You look like an idiot. I feel like an idiot. The alarm's going off. We're getting filmed, and I looked at Kevin, who's a buddy of mine that was on the team with us, and I said, "Man, this is 100% going to be on the show." Like,
oh, no, absolutely. Well, That's what I'm saying. Like, I couldn't tell you who won that contest. I can tell you anybody else, but that episode, I specifically remember you know, Michael Simon having to come in here and like, hey, Kurt, you know, wake up.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was interesting to say the least. We overcooked the hell out of our butts that day. You know, somehow by I don't know how it happened, but we got a rib call. I thought they were good. I didn't think they were that good. So yeah, it was fun, man. I would say to anybody out there competing, if you got a chance to be on the show, any show, really do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a ton of fun, and you know, it's you're only gonna make some new friends. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. So let's talk. I'm glad you brought that up as far as like the show, what the show did for you to your social media following, like, you know, new business owners. And we talked about to our previous guest how important social media presence is, especially for the food industry, to kind of, you know, build the hype and get your following up. And let's talk a little bit about how social media is taking a main stage in, you know, just everyday occupations, but especially the food business. Like, what kind of role does that play in your business model?
So I would say social media is our primary marketing channel. You know, at the end of the day, people are going to eat with their eyes first, you know, and no matter what you're cooking, one of the first things people are going to do is they're going to pull up Facebook, they're going to pull up Instagram. They want to look at pictures. They want to see what you're serving, how the plates, you know, how it all looks like, what is the serving, you know, how much you get with this plate. So if you're not on social media, really, as any small business owner, I mean, I don't care if you're in the food industry or not, it's the necessary evil. You have to dedicate the time for it. So I would say, you know, for us, it is the primary way that we market ourselves, because like I said, people are going to eat with their eyes first, and they want to take a look at what you have to offer. Unfortunately, you know, there's actually some good features, you know, on social media. I know for the most part, social media gets a bad rap, but you know, there is some positive upside to it.
For sure. Well, it's like, you know, what's the first thing you're going to do whenever you you're taking your girlfriend out or whatever to a dinner? What's the first thing you're going to do at a restaurant? You're going to look at the reviews, right? You're going to look at their Facebook page. You're going to look at like the food porn they put out and everything like that. Like, oh, well, that's good. Cause I mean, how many restaurants that are like, you know, stuff, you look at their food and you look at the reviews, you're like, oh, that looks, you know, terrible. So I'm going to skip that. So, I mean, it's, you know, it's plays such a, for me, like I'm terrible at it, especially like comps and stuff. Like my mindset, like I made a joke at, earlier in one of the earlier episodes, but I was like, I want to hire like a high school kid to come out here and like, hey, how'd you like $100? And I need you to like, you know, take pictures and do this, and I'll edit my pictures and post on social media for me. Cause I mean, it's such an important part, especially when you're trying to build a following. And you know, like we talked about earlier before the show, like, you know, building a social media presence and building a following is all about consistency and just, you know, putting out as many, you know, as much content as possible. Even if it's like, you feel like it's stupid sometimes, it's, you know, so any content is better than no content. Would you agree? Or
Hey man, I mean, you think about how crowded social media is now. You know, 10 years ago, you know, you throw a couple of hashtags up on Instagram, and 10 years ago, you're going to get, you know, 50,000 organic likes, right? Now it's so crowded, Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok to some degree. And so, yeah, it does come down to that consistency. And to your point, like when people talk about when they talk about a barbecue truck, when they talk about when they talk about, you know, really anything, any business, right? What's the first thing they're going to do? Especially food. Google reviews, like you said, they're going to go to Facebook, they're going to go to Instagram, they're going to look, right? So, you know, if you got some like profile that's unprofessional, that looks like it was done by, you know, a 9-year-old, like of course nowadays 9-year-olds probably do a good profile, but
oh yeah, I'll hire them.
But point is, like, that has to look professional. And I would say this, you know, I hear a lot of people that are like, well, I just want to compete, right? I just want to compete. I don't really care about any of that. And my take on it is, well, you never know where that competitions are going to take you. You don't know, you know, where that could lead. And so, you know what, am I saying that you should post 6 times a day? No, not at all. But, you know, it takes what, 5-10 minutes to do a post a day, which is that going to really build a brand quickly? Not necessarily, but you never know who's going to see that, even competing. And then who knows, maybe one day you're like, you know what, I want to create my own restaurant, or I want to do a food truck, whatever it may be. And so having that following, I think is really, really important. And you got to stand out. I mean, like we said, it's super crowded out there. So you got to do something to stand out.
Well, it's like you're constantly trying to catch lightning in a bottle. I mean, especially with social media, and like Justin said, one picture can make a big difference. I mean, let's be honest. The most recent, meteoric rise in social media and turning it into, monetary gain is the Hot Tui girl. I mean,
Yep.
She literally one stupid video of 5 seconds maybe, and she, that is like, just skyrocket her popularity. I bet her. I don't know. I don't follow her on social or anything, but I'm sure her socials is just insanely like 10,000% bigger, and she's turning it into monetary gain. So it just literally just takes one picture, one TikTok, one anything to make you go viral. You just got to hit the algorithm at the right time. I feel like it's almost like a lottery. You hit that at the one time. Like we talked to Gulf Coast Smoke, and he said it was one basic Weber kettle, how-to video that he got like 1.2 million views on because, just he hit that algorithm at the right time and it just, boom. So.
That's right. And, it's funny because a lot of these, as you continue to grow your business and get more followers, you might have some folks reach out to you that, claim to know about SEO. They claim to know about the social media algorithms. And I am far from being an expert on the matter, but what I have learned is that essentially no one really knows what the algorithms are, how they operate, unless you're an engineer for those respective social media companies.
Or you're Mr.
So to your point, yeah, like Mr. Beast clearly hasn't figured out, right?
Yeah. He's a teacher
but to your point, it is like a lottery. I mean, and you're not going to win if you don't play. So you got to play, and you got to do at least the daily work, right, to build up that following.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So boom, Bingo. Get in there, scout kid.
Bingo.
But no, all right. So let's move on to let's talk about, challenges in your career, challenges in competition. So what are some challenges that you faced in competition that translate kind of to your cooking for the masses? Is there anything in your competition world that translates to your your job or your catering or gig?
Oh yeah, well I think number one, there's no question, being successful, and again, we were by no means wildly successful competing. We did well at a few competitions, right? But I do think that being consistently successful at competition barbecue on a bigger scale. I'm not talking about winning the church cook-off where it's 5 teams. Sure. I'm talking about a meaningful contest. But I think the more successful you are consistently, yes, there's no question that's going to build your credibility, which is going to help build your brand. If, at some point you want to try to monetize that, right? If you want to create a business or do classes or write a book, whatever. So yeah, 100% there. I think it builds that credibility. For me, one of the biggest challenges I had to face in a competition was, we had our temp probes went down. So for whatever reason, poor planning on our part, we didn't have a backup to the backup. So we had 2 temp probes that weren't working, scrambling around, trying to figure it out. And that was the kind of the light bulb moment for me. When that happened, I said to myself, you know what? I never want to have to rely on a temperature probe ever again. Now, does that mean I don't use them? No, of course not. I still use them
every day.
But my point, but I wanted to be able to still operate, still execute at a high level without the need for one. And so I just forced myself to learn how to cook stuff at home, without the need for a temperature probe. And had I not competed, I would have never been forced to learn that, right? I would have just kind of, so that was a big eye-opening kind of light bulb moment for us in terms of challenges. And I would say the third challenge, which is a big one too, is this idea of, this idea of rejection, right? This idea that, folks go into these competitions, they think they make great barbecue. Their uncle, their aunt, their grandmother, their grandfather, their friends say it's great barbecue. First, let's be very clear about something. if you're giving your food away for free, it's always going to be good.
Always good. It's always
It's
good.
always great. Nothing could be improved. It's fantastic, right? So the quicker you can like exchange food for money, the better, because you will get an honest answer. But what happens to a lot of folks is, they hear all this positive reinforcement, and I'm not saying their barbecue's bad, but it's bad at a competition level. They get into a competition, they do poorly, they take it personally, they let the rejection get to them. And so that's where you got to be rejection. I'm not going to say rejection proof. I don't know any human that is absolutely 100% rejection proof, but you got to be rejection resilient. Competing, it's nothing personal. And you have to understand that you are cooking to a certain profile. Now, I know what some folks are thinking. They're saying, but Kurt, it says in Rule 7, Clause B, Section A, and I don't know all the rules, but it says I can put this, this, and this in a box. And I'm not saying it doesn't. It absolutely does. But what I am saying is that if you cook a KCBS event and you don't put kale in a box,
you ain't going to win.
You ain't going to win. And you can fight it all you want. And look, do I agree with it? No, but it's the way it is.
Yeah.
You need to put it in the box. Now, do I serve brisket or pulled pork on kale? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. No, yeah.
So I think it's for those three things, right? So the rejection, not taking it personally, taking away what you can from competitions. Like I said, I forced myself to learn how to cook without the need for temperature probes. So those are some of the biggest things that I can think of, off the top of my head that really helped from the competition side. And not to mention the relationships you build. I mean, heck, you and I are talking right now because of competition barbecue.
Absolutely, man. Some of my best friends now. I mean, you have your everyday normal crew, and you have your barbecue friends. And I here during the season, especially, I talk to more of my barbecue friends. I do my everyday normal friends. You know what I mean? It's kind of you build kind of relationship and a community within this niche that we have. But no, I talked to somebody about the translation between backyard or competition barbecue to doing it on a day-to-day basis. And he said this, and I thought it was a great comment. He said, competition barbecue, when it comes to, getting you ready for the commercial side of it, it's kind of like a boot camp, barbecue boot camp. It's going to teach you how to, know when stuff is done, know when tricks are, knowing little trips or tips and techniques to get you there. But when you serve it to, 1,000 people versus 6 people, certain things you can't do. So I mean, like I said, the competition side of the barbecue is, I think it's good. It's kind of like when you start doing a competition, they say you need to take a judging class, so you know what kind of barbecue they're looking for and what that. I think if you're ready to start a barbecue restaurant, I mean, I think competition barbecue is a great stepping stone to creating a barbecue career. Without
question, there's no doubt about it that you're going to learn a ton of stuff. You're going to learn those tips, those tricks. You're going to build those relationships. You can't get any of that really from a book, right? Yeah, you can watch YouTube videos, but again, that'll only take you so far. And so, yeah, there's a lot to be said for, using that as a stepping stone. Understand this about competition barbecue: it's not profitable. It's a pure hobby, and if you can't accept that fact, if you think that you're going to go in and win a grand championship and win $3,000 every weekend, then you're going to be sorely disappointed. You have to accept the fact that it is a pure hobby, that you might win every now and then. And I would even make the argument that the best ones in the country, if they're lucky on an annual basis, right, they're probably breaking even. Yeah. But how do they leverage it?
Yeah, there's a handful. I think you get to the Brads and the Tims and the Joe Pierce and all those guys, Schaefer and Patrick, like those guys have gotten to a point where they win enough where I think it becomes profitable. And also, when you get the more you win, how it is, you get more sponsors and stuff like that. So that that kind of offsets some of the cost of the competition barbecue. But yeah, for 90% of it. But like I said, man, you got to have, when everybody asks about my barbecue thing, because everybody loves asking about your barbecue, competition side, it was like, you gotta, I think when you get to a certain level or a certain age, you got to have one hobby that you spend entirely too much money on, whether it be golf or racing or something like that. And ours just happens to be barbecue. So
bingo. Well, to your point, I mean, most hobbies, for middle-aged dudes right, are
Overpriced,
they're
yeah.
expensive. It's golf, it's
Yeah.
racing, it's barbecue. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a hobby, and I just think that I didn't listen to that when I first got into it. I was like, yeah, they're just telling me that. I'll be all right. We'll win a few. I'll show them, and then obviously that didn't happen. So that's something to really think about as you get into this, is just knowing that, and that's where budgeting comes into play. If you're married, if you got a significant other, hey, chat with them. Say, hey, look, like
Yeah.
it's going to cost X. Like I may literally not have any return on this investment, and I'm going to go have a bunch of fun for about a day and a half. And that's, you got to communicate that, right? Because
Yeah.
if you have kids, you really got to communicate it.
Sure. I mean, we're professional tailgaters at that point. That's what I consider.
I mean, don't tell anybody that, but yes.
I mean, we're professional tailgaters. It's a blast. I love every second of it. But yeah, I mean, we're professional tailgaters. But no, so another thing I think about competition barbecue helps when it comes to commercial cooking and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, it doesn't teach you how to cook for the masses, but it teaches you, it gets you a lot of practice in, because I mean, like I said, practicing, like if you just went out and say, I'm gonna start a barbecue business and I'm gonna start brisket, and you never cooked brisket before, I mean, how many briskets did you mess up before you had one? You're like, okay, I will serve this to somebody else besides me.
I mean, at least a dozen, if not more. I mean, it took a while. I mean, brisket's just one of those things where, it does take some patience, and, that goes back to, I'd rather learn, how to cook first at a competition, because you're going to get really good hard feedback versus like cooking for your neighborhood, the block party, and asking people like, hey, how do you like my pulled pork? How do you like my brisket? And oh, it's great, it's fantastic, right? You're going to get great feedback from the judges, and you're going to get great feedback from other competitors. After all the turn-ins are done, go around. I mean, I've seen guys do that. Hey, like
hand them out, yeah.
Yeah, like, what do you think? Like, give me your, give me your feedback. So I think that feedback is invaluable. It's priceless. And it's super, super important. And so I think it's also, I think, another big plus about competing is it teaches you how to work under pressure, which you're going to work under a ton of pressure, especially when you're doing large caterings, when you're running, the food truck at a large festival. Yeah,
and something's going wrong.
Right. Bingo.
Yeah. So who do you think's more harsh, a harsh critic, the barbecue judges or your paying customers?
I would have to say, boy, that's a tough one, because it really is apples and oranges. At the end of the day, when people are putting skin in the game, they're going to be tough. I mean, to me, a paying customer is going to be tougher, because the judge could hate your food, but he's not going to leave a bad review.
Right. Yeah.
A customer, you could have, 500 5-star reviews, and you get that one that it just wasn't your day, because you're not always going to cook, 100%, A plus 100% of the time, right? You're going to have bad days.
Right.
But to me, to answer your question, I think it's the paying customer that's harder on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that one negative Yelp review is a lot more, hurtful than a 7 on a scorecard.
Bingo. That's right.
Yeah. But man, so let's talk about, like I said, I mean, I'm trying to, bring in both worlds, competition and, your commercial cooking. Meat selection. Let's talk meat selection for your food vendors versus, competition. Like competition, it kind of teaches you like what proteins to look for and what what's a good looking raw piece of meat. Does that, you kind of bring that attitude when it comes into, cooking for the masses? You're like, hey, these look good. This is kind of so when your briskets, you cook primed, you cook choice. I mean, you cook certain amounts, or like, what do you do in your meat selections?
Yeah. So of course, with meat selection, from a competition standpoint, you're going to tend to be a lot more OCD about it, right? You're going to be a lot more critical on your meat selection. You're gonna drop 250, $300 on a brisket, for
Sure.
example,
Sure.
et cetera. You can go down the line, Duroc pork and, all the, Prairie Fresh, all that stuff. So yeah, I think you're going to be way more critical on the competition side. On the vending side for us, when it comes to brisket, we 80% of the time, 70 to 80% of the time, we're cooking prime. I will not cook anything less than prime unless I'm forced to. And by that, I mean, if my beef supplier is closed, which they are on Saturdays and Sundays, and I need brisket, then yes, I will buy choice at Sam's if I have to. But other than that, I think it's important, on the vending side, on the food truck side, that you build those strong relationships with those protein suppliers specifically, because that's going to be by far and away your largest expense outside of payroll if you have employees, right? So brisket wise, the lowest we cook is prime. Lately, we've been able to get our hands on Wagyu, A5 Wagyu, and that's what we've been cooking.
There you
a lot of. Everything else, the tri-tip, the beef ribs, all are choice most of the time, unless I can get prime at a reasonable, price point to where I can still, maintain my pricing level and also my profitability as well. Pork wise, I tend to get most of that from Sam's. Although hopefully that's going to change here shortly. I'm hopeful to get, an account with Cisco and have all that delivered, because they're way more competitive on pork pricing. So from a like general masses standpoint, I tend to prefer IBP. If I'm cooking a lot of butts, if I'm cooking a lot of baby back ribs, I tend to prefer IBP, which is Tyson. Just in my opinion, the butts and the ribs just look better to me than a Smithfield, which is another big one. So chicken, we don't really do a whole lot of chicken. We do it on the catering side. I don't do it on the food truck side. I'm a big thigh guy. I love, cooking chicken thighs. I think it's my favorite cut of chicken is the thighs.
Oh yeah.
Again, that comes from Sam's as well. So, like we said, right after you asked the question, yeah, you're going to be way more critical on the competition side. You're going to buy this, Springer Mountain Farms chicken. You're probably not buying that for mass, consumption.
Right. Well, I mean, what's Seaboard? Seaboard, is that Tyson?
Seaboard is my understanding. Seaboard owns Prairie Fresh. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I know that Seaboard does. I think they get it through Tyson or something like that. I don't know. I always try to look and see what trucks come in for whenever I do my my meat picks, my meat lottery, I call it. Whenever I bother my local butcher and dig through all of his cases of ribs and butts and whatnot. But no, yeah, I mean that's like when we talked to Brad Leininger, he has the big restaurant there in St. Louis, and it surprised me. He said he uses Snake River Blacks for his restaurant, and I'm like, well, no wonder he gets like the creme de la creme, because he's going through like cases and cases and cases of Snake River Blacks. I'm like, he said he used 35% of their whole market is his restaurants. I'm like, that's just insane, the amount of meat. I talked to some of these like Texas guys and some of these big restaurant owners, stuff like that. Just the amount, like people don't understand like the amount of weight of product that goes through some of these like big outfits, and like to still focus on quality instead of just whatever's the cheapest. I think that's what kind of separates like what you're doing with the prime and the Wagyu briskets, and you don't sacrifice quality for your margins. I'm sure it'd be a lot cheaper. Your margins would be a lot better if you went bottom barrel choice, but then your quality is going to lack. It goes back to what we said. You can have it good, fast, or cheap, and so you got to pick two, and I think you picked the correct two.
No doubt, man. And to your point, that's the second or third time we brought it up, but that's, if you're looking at making this a business, if you're looking at branching out into the food truck, food trailer world, that's a big question you got to ask yourself. What do I want to be known for? Right. Is it quality? Is it cost? There's no right or wrong answer, but you got it. Whatever it is, you got to own it.
Yep. Absolutely. So in the barbecue business, and I mean, any business in general, I mean, we all have mentors. We all have people we look up to. And this is I want to ask this question I ask all of our guests, and it's one of my favorites. So when you think of barbecue business or barbecue competition, you pick one or combine the two. Who is on your meat Rushmore when it comes to like people you look up to, people you aspire to be, people you're kind of modeling your business off of?
Well, I would say, first and foremost, Robbie Royal. Robbie really helped us out very early on. I mean, early on, I'm talking like second GBA competition, right? So like we literally didn't know what we didn't know. And I mean, to some degree still don't, but yeah, I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind is Robbie helped us out a ton. Chuck East, off the chain, he helped us out a ton early on in the game. And then as we made that transition over to like the KCBS side, we had folks like Kerry Chastain. He was a huge help. Just answering questions. Just whether it be how to build the box, whether it be meat selection, you name it, or just making those connections. So yeah, those are the right off the top of my head. I'm sure I'm forgetting some folks, but those three: the Robbie Royal, Chuck East, Kerry Chastain. Those folks really poured a lot of time and effort into us and helped us out a ton.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely like some Georgia studs for sure. All those guys there are on definitely the Mount Rushmore of the Great Peach State. Kerry Chastain. I mean, he's an absolute stud. Chuck and Robbie, like that pork town. So I took the Atlanta barbecue supply class, and Chuck and Kerry were there, and they cooked their pork loin. And that, like, of all the great pitmasters that were there, and there were some studs. Their pork loin was the best piece of pork I ever put in my mouth. Like, oh my gosh, like I get why they win so much.
Yep, but they dominate. I mean, they dominated the GBA for a long time.
Oh yeah,
much like Robbie did.
Sure, absolutely. Well, man, another thing I always like asking our guest is, like I said, now that you've moved on pretty much from competition to doing this for a living, like what are some goals that you have for IronHead Barbecue? Like where do you see yourself? Like what do you want to be in like 5 years? So you want to be like a brick and mortar? Do you want to be more of a couple of food trucks, or like what do you see?
So I would say, I would break it down into short-term and more mid to long-term goals. Short-term goal within the next, year to 18 months is to have a brick and mortar, right? So 2025 is our target there to have our first brick and mortar. We are on the goal line in terms of getting our brand trademarked. So that's been a long, and I mean a long process, 18 months to be exact, to get that done. And so that's going to help us achieve our long-term goal, which is to be able to franchise out across the Southeast and eventually the entire country. I mean, that's the 5-year plan. Is I want IronHead Barbecue to be a nationally recognized barbecue brand in the same way that companies like Dave's World Famous, Willie Jules,
Barbecue or something like that.
Bingo. Yeah. So that's precisely what I want to be able to do with the company. Is ultimately just from a revenue standpoint, that right there, when you start to franchise, when you talk about, building that network out, that's where really the magic starts to happen in terms of that passive, people always talk about passive income, but that's where that passive income comes into play. So those are our, short, kind of mid to long-term goals. I would say another short-term goal within the next 12 to 18 months, have our lineup of sauces, come out with 2 to 3 sauces as well to add to our rub lineup. But outside of that, I don't tend to look beyond the 5-year mark. I think I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying for me, it's really hard to visualize beyond that. And so ultimately my 5-year plan is, as I said, is to have IronHead Barbecue a nationally recognized barbecue chain.
Sure. I mean, I think 5 years is a good like stopgap of, where if you set too far goals, it becomes unattainable, or 5 years like, okay, it's right around the corner, I can still do that. But so you brought up your rubs and you want to develop some sauces. So how many rubs do you have on the market, and talk to me about it right now?
We've got 3 on the market right now: brisket, beef, and pork. You can find them on social media. You can find them on our website, ironheadbbq.com. But we didn't reinvent the wheel, right? I always like to be upfront about that. I took what I liked from different rubs that are already out there in the marketplace. Our brisket rub, I took some inspiration from Hardcore Carnivore black seasoning. I took some inspiration from, the Heath Riles brisket. So ultimately, like, when you develop your rubs, I think don't get caught up in this idea of like, well, I'm gonna have a bunch of people taste test it. I'm going to take all their advice because you'll never get any rubs done. You'll get all these opinions and you won't go anywhere. Make what you like, right? Take a little bit and get some inspiration from different areas and then put your flair on it. I did the same thing with our pork rub in terms of like looking at like, I like the Myron Mixon pork rub. I looked at, I'm trying to think of some other good pork. Heath Riles, really, you can never go wrong there in terms of inspiration. But yeah, that's how they all came to be. And then it was just a matter of, okay, finding a co-packer. Lane's out of Bethlehem, Georgia, did a phenomenal job with that, get your labels designed. So I will say this, like in terms of building a brand, it's much easier just from an FDA and red tape standpoint to get, the rubs done versus the sauce. But yeah, our rubs, I made rubs for the meats that we cook predominantly. And, my goal is to have another 3 out along with those sauces, the all-purpose, the chicken, and then the SPG, which, SPG is always a winner.
Sure.
No matter what you're cooking. So yeah, those are the 3 main rubs right now. Our brisket rub is probably our most popular. I use it on steak as well. And a lot of folks have really found they like it on steak too. So, you never know where that can take you. You might develop a rub for beef, but find out that it's really good in baked beans.
Oh, yeah.
I did. I was like, that's what we use in our baked beans. I use our beef rub. I found it was really good. So, don't get so focused on, well, I can only use it for beef. I mean, yes, you need to label it something, but don't get so anchored to I can only use it for that one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's one thing like rubs, and we talked to some other guests on our show, is like, when they come out their own rubs and they put the word pork or they put the word beef or they put something like that in there, people kind of pigeonholes them into like the everyday backyard guys. They're like, because I mean, when you first started cooking barbecue, I mean, it says pork on it. What are you gonna throw it on? You're gonna throw it on pork,
yeah,
right? But me, I mean, hell, I'll take some barbecue rubs. I'll put it on Bob Tronick's Alpha Rub. I put that thing on chicken. I'll put it on popcorn. I put it on eggs. I mean, I put it on everything. Or I put Twisted Steel Steak Appeal. Like I do a Local Lima, and I use that as my rim for margaritas. It's so like barbecue rubs are so versatile, and like getting the backyard people to kind of realize that and try, different stuff on different proteins. That's something that we have to educate them for. But I mean, what great way to advertise though through your your commercial cooking and stuff like that. Like, hey man, I love this brisket. This is the best, best brisket I've ever had. What do you put on that? You're like, well, hey, funny you should ask that. I have blah blah blah. I have
right here.
Boom, right here. And for $10, this could be you could cook it just like this at home.
Right.
I mean, you can't, but I'll tell you this.
Today's special only for today.
Yeah, you're gonna ruin the first one, but here you go.
Right.
But no, it's cool. I mean, personally, that's going to be something. One of my 5-year goals is to have my own rub. I mean, not so much commercially, just more of an ego thing for me. I want to have it as long as, like you said, with branding and whatnot. I want to have kind of something that I can hand out to guests, like for people to come on the show or just friends and stuff like that. To I have my own rub. It's kind of like when you're a barbecue guy, like you said. I cannot call myself a pit master unless I can cook a brisket. It's like I said that about like a whole hog. Like I can't call myself a pit master until I've cooked a whole hog. Yep. And that's kind of how I am now with competition. Like I can't call myself a competition barbecue unless I have my own barbecue rub. So it's something silly and something, it's not, for everybody, but it's what we want to do. But
that's right.
Anywho, man. Wrong one. That sound means it's time for the Brothers Q Barbecue Supply Lightning Round, brought to you by Brothers Q Barbecue Supply for all your barbecue needs. Kurt, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. This is the time of show where I got like 8 questions I want to ask you. Short, simple, silly questions, little one-liners. Don't think too hard. And you ready to rock?
Let's do it.
Let's go, man. What is one thing you know now that you wish you knew at the beginning of your barbecue career?
Don't rely on temperature probes. Learn how to cook meat without them.
All right, man. That's going to roll us into our next question. What is one thing you always have on you in your barbecue trailer or barbecue home, and you cannot say your meat probe or thermometer?
Pocket knife.
Pocket knife. Are you a Swiss Army guy? What kind of knife are you rocking? Benchmade?
Williams Knives out of Birmingham.
Oh, very nice, man. If you're a chef, that's your number one tool is your knives. You got to have some good knives. Right. All right, man. What's your favorite thing to cook at home?
Tacos. Steak tacos. Ribeye, tacos.
Ribeye. Oh, he's breaking it down. Carne asada taco. No.
There you go.
All right. Beach or mountain vacation?
Beach.
All right, man. If you could have a walk-up song at awards, what would it be?
New Level by A$AP Ferg.
There you go. All right. Last question, man. All right. You got a hot date. You're trying to lay a night down, nice spread. What meal are you going to prepare her that's going to impress her and knock her socks off? What's it going to be?
Baby back ribs, smoked mac and cheese, slaw, and smoked baked beans.
Oh, any dessert in there? You
Oh,
dessert
yeah.
guy?
Smoked blueberry peach cobbler.
Oh shit! Sign me up. I love cobblers. I love anything in the cobbler realm. But man, that is it. That's our show. I appreciate you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the show. And it's nice, man. I like I said, you kind of got me into the podcast world. You kind of, put me out there, and now it's become full spectrum.
I love it, man. Well, keep doing the great work. Love the show, man. And yeah, we'll be in touch, brother.
Absolutely. Hey, before you go, let people know where they can find you, and if you have anything you want to shout out, man. I know you're a Good Charcoal ambassador, as we all love the Good Charcoal Company.
Yep, Good Charcoal is awesome. I love the lump. I use it pretty much 3 or 4 times a week. Social media wise, you can check us out at IRONHEAD BBQ. That's our handle on Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok. And then check out our website too, ironheadbbq.com. That's where you can find all of our cool merch and everything else.
All right, man. If you're ever in not Savannah, what is it? Augusta, my apologies. Augusta, South Carolina. Make sure you check this man out. I know I am, and I'm excited to try it out, man. All right, Kurt, thank you so much, man, and take care, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. Take care.
Bye. All right, guys. Well, that's our show. Sorry, main man Matt has some technical difficulties. He's still working on that AOL dial-up. I will set up a GoFundMe and try to get him set up for next time. But yeah, guys, like I said, thank you for sticking around. Now this concludes our food truck ode to Food Truck Month. I know I said that last week, and apparently I don't own a calendar nor know how to read it. But next week coming up, we do have Harry Sue, the one, the only Harry Sue, will be our guest next week. So make sure you tune in and check him out. I cannot wait. I'm a little fangirling a little bit over that, but it's going to be a great show. But man, that is our show tonight. And next week, I will try to have one of my lovely co-hosts. I know you love seeing this beautiful face, but I will have one of our co-hosts, AJ or Houston, with me, and we will rock this thing. So until next time, man, when it comes to barbecue, make sure you're always right on cue. See you guys.
That's all, folks.